Hi everyone and welcome to your horoscope for the week of June 23rd, brought to you by 1millionnights.com. We have a very powerful sky all week. There are very significant celestial conversations taking place just before an extremely important and potentially life-changing solar eclipse in the sign of Cancer, taking place at around the 2nd of July, give or take a day depending on which side of the planet you're on. But of course, you are going to find a separate article on our website specially dedicated to this astrological event. So we start the week with a very assertive energy, which dominated all of the end of last week. Mars conjunct Mercury in the sign of Cancer in opposition with Saturn and Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. This energy forces all of us in at least one area of our lives to focus upon all our limitations. Those limitations which have a massive impact on our material lives. Mercury in the sign of Cancer raises our emotional awareness. It summons all of our intuitive intelligence in order to better understand ourselves and all those factors which influence our emotional world, but all of this in a very pressing way. Mars and Mercury together are very quick energies, and this celerity is counterbalanced by Saturn, which is a very slow moving energy and which forces us to reevaluate our situations over and over again until we reach a state of emotional and intellectual clarity, which we need in order to break the stagnation, identify which values are worth working for and fighting for, which of our past decisions were wise and constructive for the long term, and what it is that no longer serves us and needs to be eliminated from our lives. The opposition of Pluto and Mars is also very significant because for the individual, this plays out as trying to find our true strength, our own personal power, and use this to shape our lives in such a way that our most valued principles, the way we want to live our lives, and all those things that we wish to experience and have in our lives are compatible and can be accomplished in palpable, physical, material sense. In other words, it has to be possible socially. Some of us have a tendency to rebel, to force society to adapt to our own needs and desires rather than the other way around, and this can be quite a struggle. This can put an immense pressure on our beings. This can feel as if the social environment we live in is trying to defeat us, go against us, rather than to enable us to express the person who we truly are. The best way to use this energy is to think logically, to try our very best not to bring heated emotions into this equation, but rather try and change what we can. What is in our power? In which means, in which ways is it possible for us to access these changes? For example, we can change the world by expressing our civil rights by voting, by signing petitions, by supporting organizations and non-governmental groups which represent our principles, or we can participate on peaceful protests, or simply express our desires to our representatives, our officials. These are just some examples of how we can use this energy. But of course, it's very important to accept those things which we have absolutely no power over and try to adapt and not let this dominate us emotionally. This reminds me of the prayer of serenity, where we ask the divine to give us the power to change all those things in our lives which we do have power over, and also to give us the strength, an internal emotional strength to accept those things which we have absolutely no power over, and this way we can reach a heightened state of serenity and peace within ourselves. Collectively, however, this can cause a huge social unrest. Mars in Cancer represents territoriality, boundaries, borders, the supreme value of our ethical and cultural distinctiveness, while Pluto and Saturn in Capricorn represent the power, influence of our leaders, our leadership, of our representatives, of the organizations, of the power structures that govern us socially, the hierarchical power ladder, so to speak, and there is sure to be a confrontation between these two opposing forces. Mars opposing Pluto usually equals military action, violence, bringing forth change and establishing dominance through exertion of power. The best way to use this energy is to go inwards, identifying all of our accomplishments, to use the wisdom, knowledge, know-how which we gain from palpable life experiences and direct this energy, this knowledge towards work, that work which we are willing to invest in ourselves, in our lives, in our goals in order to obtain a realistic, palpable, down-to-earth, real-life realizations which are going to serve us and give us material, social stability in the long term. So this energy is very, very productive if we look at the bigger picture, if we use it to build something really stable and grounded in the long term. Doesn't really favor short-term goals or very quick projects. Also, we can use this energy to surrender in trying to accomplish those goals which are actually quite unhealthy, which do not serve our highest goods, and those which do not really source from the deep core of our beings, which do not advantage us karmically, and all of these things that simply do not belong in our lives anymore, and more importantly in our hearts, will simply lose their gravity, their importance. They're going to set us free and allow us to allocate all our inner resources to work for those goals which do actually matter very much in the long term, for our life's main purpose, to become the person who we feel we are being called to become, and have a life which is a valid reflection of that in a very palpable and material sense. Another very important astrological event happening right at the start of the week is the Sun entering the sign of Cancer, which rules the home, family, our sense of emotional security, feeling home in our lives, having a sense of belonging, being part of the collective, which reflects our own emotional values. It's this energy that's going to be activated by the movement of the Sun from the sign of Gemini into the sign of Cancer. This is a very powerful time to get in touch with your most authentic feelings and emotions, to identify what truly matters to you, emotional aspect of your life, to get in touch with your most authentic feelings, emotions, to identify what truly matters to you the most, and to answer certain questions. For example, are you comfortable with the emotional side of your life the way it is right now? Or are you seeking improvements, a completion, an upgrade? For those of you who are single, this can trigger some very powerful instincts to find a partner, to find someone who can offer you a sense of emotional comfort, emotional protection, someone who can make you feel happy and comfortable in your own life, and ultimately to form a family, because that is the ultimate purpose of finding a partner, isn't it? To be able to create an emotional world, extended reality of our inner world, and that needs another person, because alone I'm not really sure if we have all those inner resources, the experience, the wisdom, and different perceptions to complete our lives. However, for those of you who are in an established bond, you might be looking for a new home, or to improve your existing one, or to strengthen your relationship. For example, to make it official, to make it legally binding, to offer you legal protection. And the sign of Cancer is ruled by the moon, the astrological figure of the mother, motherhood, and of course matriarchy. So for some of you this will mean finding your desire to become parents, to enlarge your family, give birth to a child. This is also very favorable energy to return to your place of birth, a homecoming if you will, to visit your family, to try your very best to harmonize your relationship with your family. If all of this wasn't enough, there is also another conversation taking place in the sky, but this one is of tension, which can cause emotional confusion, which can force us to reevaluate everything that we love. We might be looking for all the reasons, the logic, the clarity to better understand our own feelings. This conversation is Venus The goddess of love and beauty in the sign of Gemini is going to stand across the sky from Jupiter in his home sign of Sagittarius, and both of them are going to square Neptune, which is already in its retrograde phase. This energy is of maximum confusion, lack of emotional and intellectual clarity. It has a tendency to totally disconnect us from reality, uproot us emotionally, and either send our heads and hearts into the clouds, into our very own and personal ivory towers of illusion, into a world of fantasy, or it can be extremely oppressive emotionally, giving us the sense of deep pessimism, of loneliness, hopelessness, of being the victims of fate when it comes to matters of heart and love. Equally, Venus also rules our finances, our values, our worth. So for some of you this can mean the sense of poverty. But of course, let's not forget that this is an illusion. It's not actual poverty, it's just the illusion of poverty. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, so it amplifies, magnifies, expands, so to speak, everything it touches. And if it's loneliness or dissatisfaction that you currently have in your life and you put emphasis on, then this energy can be really overwhelming, depressive, so to speak. This doesn't necessarily have to be lack of love for a person or love in the romantic sense. It can be love for an activity, love for your work, self-love and self-worth, but everything you love, you're going to question. You're going to question why it is that you love that specific thing, or where it is that you need to be looking for love, a greater expression of love in your life. So there's a heavy energy of illusion, of fantasy, of not really being grounded in reality in the air. So what we feel during this transit simply cannot be trusted, because the very powerful Neptunian energies amplified by Jupiter, which make all illusion, tricks of the mind, unrealistic emotional states, self-deception, more powerful than ever before. This energy is also very dangerous for any type of escapist tendency. For example, alcohol, taking drugs, immersing into a world of fantasy like computer games, books, make-believe, fantasy, because this T-square almost like tempting us, inviting us to overdo all of our escapist tendencies. So this is quite dangerous. Those tendencies have anything to do with alcohol or substances, because those can actually kill us in a physical sense. Neptune also forms a harmonious celestial dance with Mars and Mercury in the sign of Cancer, and this is a highly spiritual watery energy which amplifies our primordial instincts. It gives us the ability to tap into our emotional power, to use our feelings as batteries, to power our ambitions, our dreams, our desires, and ultimately what we believe in. Even though this is a trine, a celestial conversation of harmony, we mustn't let this dreamy energy, this emotional catalyst, blind us to physical reality. We must always try and balance this out with all those karmic and past lessons highlighted by Saturn, in the sense that whatever we are fighting for, whatever we are working for, whatever we are ambitioning ourselves to achieve, has to have material palpability. It has to be able to exist in real life, in matter, so to speak. The very powerful but confusing, self-deceiving fog of illusion released by the Neptunian aspects are going to have a very significant counterbalance, a very helpful aspect in this sense, which is the Sun in the sign of Cancer, forming a sextile with Uranus in Taurus. This conversation can offer us awareness, clarity, information, epiphanies, and moments of subtle realization to come up with all the right ideas, solutions, plans, strategies to obtain material security or to make significant progress materially. If we are suffering from stagnation, standstill, lack of evolution, then this energy can represent the breakthrough we're all waiting for. Uranus is the planet of chaos, unpredictable force of nature, sudden change, surprises and shock. So we won't have much control over how and when inspiration, breakthrough is going to enter our lives, but as long as we desire it, As long as we put the emphasis on awareness and being fully lucid, the universe is sure to offer us guidance in the most unexpected and surprising ways. This energy can also be very beneficial for those of you who are looking for a new home, a home swap, a move, to relocate, because instead of you finding the right place, chances are the place, fate, is going to find the most ideal house, place, situation for you to make this transit. This energy can also be quite lucky, but it's not the kind of luck that Jupiter or Venus provide us with. It's not an easy energy, it's not free, it's not like a blessing which you don't have to work for. It's rather owning your own power to create luck for yourself in every area of your life. And of course the knowledge to do that. Right in the middle of the week, the thick, confusing, emotionally oppressing energy that was present at the start of the week is slowly going to lift. Things will seem to be a little bit more easier because Mars and Mercury are going to trine a conversation of harmony with the moon conjunct Neptune in its home sign of Pisces, which also forms a sextile with Saturn and Pluto in the sign of Capricorn. This is the moment when we have the chance to lift the fog of confusion, to benefit from the positive, creative and helpful Neptunian vibes rather than the negative ones. We're going to feel guided, steered by the power of faith, and if we take all the right decisions, all the right actions, empowered by our own inner truth, then our dreams and desires won't seem that far away, especially if we adapt them and adjust them to be compatible with material aspects of our lives. Also, this can be a very significant aspect from a psychological perspective, because it can give us the emotional clarity, the emotional support, maybe from another person, maybe it's a highly trained professional like a psychologist or a counselor. All of this in order to quiet our being's darker side, one which is ruled by shame, by fears, one which is stuck in the traumas of the past, one which prevents us from becoming one with our virtues, with our most valued principles. Also, it gives us the chance to identify that which we hate the most in ourselves, by seeing all those things that we hate in ourselves, in other people, and realizing that in fact the reasons we dislike those qualities so very much in other people is exactly because it is our own side, that side of ourselves which we hate, which we despise the most. Sometimes we dislike that aspect of ourselves so much that we don't even wish to see it or acknowledge it. And then this in itself, this knowledge, this emotional clarity, this epiphany can lead us towards true wisdom and better understanding ourselves and each other alike, hiding our own inner ugliness. Everything that makes us ugly from the inside is simply negation when it comes to other people and the power that they possess by reflecting these qualities back at us by their own self-expression that we do not like or that we do not accept in them. That's not really productive. It can only make things harder and more complicated in the long run if totally disregard those inner obstacles, our weaknesses and everything that we don't like about ourselves. Instead, if we give it full awareness, if we study it, if we practice a kind of self-psychoanalysis, if we are totally honest with ourselves, then we can work with this energy. We have a choice how we express ourselves, and if we know our own vulnerabilities, if we know our own weaknesses, our weak points so to speak, and the most irrational part of our beings, then we can also know how to counterbalance them with all the right things that we love about ourselves and which make us who we are, and which make us valuable, beautiful and relevant in the lives of others. And this is our own contribution to make the lives of other people, those who surround us, more beautiful, and us to influence it in a very positive way. Ultimately, what this energy is trying to teach us is to take full responsibility for all the things that we express. Are we expressing loving thoughts? And is what we express, think, feel constructive? in the sense that, is it making the world and society a happier and more peaceful place? Or are we respecting the feelings of other people? Are we expressing our own dissatisfaction and projecting our own happiness and disappointment onto other people, society, the collective, instead of owing responsibility, instead of going within and finding sufficient self-love in order to cope with our own dramas, with our own dissatisfactions? Or are we choosing to seem to simply express them, release them without absolutely no control whatsoever? And then we might risk to poison, to infect the vibrations, the state, the happiness of other people, and just make the world that much of a sadder place by expressing our own inner filth. This sextile between Neptune and Pluto is very relevant because both of them have a massive impact on our subconscious. Both Pluto and Neptune rule the subconscious in different ways. It is the deepest and most complex part of our psyches, and this energy can offer us the power of alchemy, to transmute, to change the way we look at our pasts and the role of the past that has in our lives. This can be a very powerful source of knowledge and pure wisdom, where we have the chance to release, to let go of those things which trap a part of our souls in the past and force us to relive the pain, the soul-shattering experiences, the hurt, the failures, with the same intensity that which we lived them when they happened. We have the power, influence, the control over our own feelings, of our own beings. We have this power to take control on our emotional response to everything that takes place in our present, but also the past from a totally different perspective. We can simply imagine that the past is simply a memory. It's not real. It's just a mental image. It's pretty much the same energy as what we use to fantasize with, our imagination. If we can create scenarios, simulations of different possibilities in our minds, and our most gifted artists, people, can create like whole new dimensions, can create alternate realities like fantasies, games, books, sci-fi, like Game of Thrones for example, like a whole new alternate universe, just but with the power of their fantasy and creativity. We also have that power, the power to change the way we recall the past. If we simply acknowledge that the past and our memories are nothing more than just a fantasy, then we have the power to alter the way we recall it, and we have the power to not allow it to influence our present state of beings. We can just treat them as a memory and not give them the power, the strength to grip, to have a massive grip on our beings and enslave us. We are not our thoughts, we are not our past, we are actually our present, the eternal and infinite present. Later on in the week, this energy is going to gain more momentum because Venus in Gemini is going to form a sextile with the moon in Aries. And this is a very empowering celestial conversation because it unites the innate beauty of our beings, the beauty which Mother Nature and the universe gifted us with at the moment of our birth, with the beauty which we learned how to create through our minds and through our thoughts. As long as beauty is present in our souls and perceived by our minds and expressed through our words and communication, we have the potential to attract into our lives that which we think and focus on. And if we think beautiful thoughts, if we have beautiful desires, then ultimately that is what we're going to attract into our lives. Towards the end of the week, there is a very powerful conversation happening. The moon conjunct Uranus in the sign of Taurus, speaking in supreme harmony with Pluto and Saturn. This can conjure some very powerful fated events, highlighting the power of the soul, the force of good karma, solutions, rewards, even material gifts, unexpected help from others may reach us during this time. And since Uranus also forms a sextile with the Sun in Cancer, all of the events that are going to play out during this time are going to offer us a better understanding, an awareness of the fact of what is happening in our inner worlds, in our inner cosmos, has to manifest, become real on the outside, and of course vice versa. Well, thank you so much for listening. We wish you a very wonderful and pleasant week, and please stay tuned for another special horoscope with the subject, the upcoming solar eclipse taking place in the sign of Cancer on the 2nd of July 2019, give or take a day depending on which side of the planet you're on. That is going to be a very powerful celestial conversation which has the potential to bring a significant new beginning into our lives and change it forever, especially in that area of our lives which is ruled by Cancer. Thank you so much, and please stay tuned for the next article.